Hello guys and welcome back. Hope all of you are doing well this week. Today I'm going to be answering a bunch of questions that you guys sent in, so I think it's going to be quite interesting. Gallery update before we start. So I've actually moved one of my tanks, which is the bonsai shrimp tank, over to this section here because I really wanted to be able to view it a lot more, and it just wasn't happening on the stand where it was before. Okay, let me just push this chair out of the way so you guys can give it a look. So I actually made this stand myself. My woodworking skills aren't the best, but at least it's quite a sturdy stand. I still have a lot of work to do, wire, cable management, sorry. And right now the cables are just sitting in this box. So right now the fit is a little bit too snug, so I need to sort that out. But yeah, gonna get there eventually. So first question, this one is kind of one of the easiest questions, so I'm just going to ease myself into this. What is your favorite nano fish? So this is a hard one because there are so many very, very cool nano fish, but I don't know. I have a thing for ember tetras. Right now I don't actually have any, but I have kept them in the past, and they're just a personal favorite. I really like how, the color can stand out on scapes. And it's just a very, very cool, classic little fish. Very honest. I do think that tetras in general are kind of my favorite fish. Whatever tetra it's going to be, I really, really like them. I would like to keep, and this is like, I do think I will maybe be doing this by the end of this year, but getting a bigger tank and really keeping phantom tetras, because I think that's one of my favorite fish. It isn't a nano fish, but it's a tetra, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So, God, I'm going blind. And your tank always looked so beautiful without any algae. Did you ever go through the ugly stage? How do you keep all your tanks looking so nice with those full carpet plants? Thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, I do go through the ugly stage. For some of you maybe who have watched the Project Nano videos, you guys do know in some setups I have struggled more than others with this ugly phase, especially if I'm to be very honest, would be the Iwagumi scape, which is right here. The start off with this one was kind of hectic because when you're not using CO2, carpeting plants can really take a while to take off. Sometimes they can take a good month to really root themselves into the aqua soil and to really start to grow. And that's kind of the danger phase, if you want, in the sense where when the plants aren't growing and you're pumping in fertilizer, there is light, that can cause algae flare-ups, and that's exactly what happened. You can actually see it in part 2 of the Iwagumi video, where I'm literally battling on a weekly basis with this ugly phase with diatoms, which is completely normal, of course, but also with green algae, which was in this tank. So yeah, I went through quite an ugly period with that one. But yeah, it's really going to depend on your scape. I do find that the more rock you have in an aquascape, the more you kind of have that risk of that very, very ugly phase. But yeah, it's completely normal, especially in startup phases. It can happen. Second part was, how do you keep your tanks looking so nice with those full carpeting plants? So it's just regular maintenance, if I'm completely honest. Regular maintenance, regular water changes, cleanups, and obviously with carpeting plants, you really want to get yourself. I say it all the time in my videos, but get yourself a good quality aqua soil. Doesn't matter what brand it is, right? Get yourself a good quality one that's not going to deplete after a few months of use. Get yourself a good quality light and do your regular maintenance, and you're already on the road to a very good success with carpeting plants. And also take your time. If you're not using CO2, it may take you, like in the Project Nano videos, you can see it literally week by week. It can sometimes take 2 to 3 months to really get your carpeting plants to grow out fully. So yeah, it can take a little bit of time. So on to the next question. What's your process when it comes to aquascaping a new project? Do you draw, research pictures, watch videos, etc.? This one is kind of hard to answer because I don't know. Sometimes I just really go with the flow. Sometimes I have an idea of the scape that I want to do, have a general idea. And when I start putting the rocks in, I start putting the wood in, sometimes it kind of pivots towards something else. So it really does depend. For the nano gallery, for this project, which I did for ADS, I did actually, it wasn't drawings, but it's kind of digital pictures that I made. But it was more to have, to show when you're working sometimes with brands what the project's going to be about, could look like, what it was going to be about. So I just inspired myself off these pictures I created. But if you have watched the Project Nano videos, you do know they're just inspired off them. They don't look exactly like these pictures. And that's also an amazing thing about aquascaping. You can base yourself off a picture all you want. It doesn't mean it's going to look exactly like that picture. But yeah, I don't really draw up my scapes. I don't really research or watch videos. I think it's just something that comes naturally. Maybe I will, I really like Hygrophila pindifida, like on this scape right here. And I was like, I just want to do a tank based around this plant. And the vibes it was giving off for me at the time was kind of like very dark cave vibes. So that's exactly what I went for with this kind of scape. So yeah, I just kind of go with the flow. Because as much as you're going to draw things up, you're never going to have the same rock, the same piece of wood. So sometimes you just also have to go with the hardscape or the quantity of plants you have in that moment. And yeah, often it turns out pretty good, and sometimes it turns out nothing as I imagined. And sometimes that's good as well, not to kind of limit yourself just to what you've drawn up, what you've planned. Sometimes, you can have a rock that looks amazing and it can become your centerpiece. So yeah, I try not to limit myself to just, one kind of thing. I kind of go with what I have, if that makes any sense at all. I hope I answered that question for you. So, I don't know if this is even a question. Who's your aquascaping bestie? For those of you who don't know who Eloise is, we did the Tetra Aquatics Festival together, and we won second place. So yeah, Eloise is my aquascaping bestie. We have since become good friends, and I do hope that sometime soon, maybe not this year, but maybe current next year, we'll be able to do a project together. We have to see how that goes. But yeah. Eloise, it's you. I know you're watching. Next question. Did you grow up having fish tanks, or did you find interest in the hobby later in life? So, yeah, I did. I think like quite a lot of kids, my parents got me a goldfish tank. So this wasn't your average goldfish tank. This was a real big tank where I had 3 common goldfish inside. So yeah, I did have a fish tank for a little while when I was a kid. But I wasn't really too interested in it, if I was honest. I then moved away, and my neighbor, who was a massive fish keeper, took them in. And I actually moved to a house where there was a massive outdoor pond. And I think that's when I really, like, the hobby hit me, if I can say that. I was still a kid, I was like a little over 10, so I was quite small. But that pond was massive. It had koi fish, it had frogs, it had a whole ecosystem around it. And I think that's when it really sparked interest in me, just to see that pond evolve through the seasons, to see, the frog spawning, all that kind of stuff was just absolutely amazing for me as a kid. And I think that's when it really started. So yeah, it's just this amazing pond. Unfortunately, this was in the 90s, so we didn't really have pictures we didn't really take pictures like we did now. So I don't actually have any pictures of this pond, unfortunately, but I think it all started there, and I think I can't really express how amazing that was, just to be able to sit by this massive pond and see all this stuff going on. So yeah, I think it kind of started there. And then I moved again a couple of years later. And I think that sometimes life, for me, it got a little bit complicated, and I wasn't able to keep fish again till about 2020, and that's when I really started this whole aquascaping hobby seriously. I think it was really in 2020. So yeah, quite a long time without having any tanks whatsoever. Sometimes life can get in the way, and yeah, it kind of, some things happen just later on in life, and I think that's exactly what happened to me. Without going into too much detail, but yeah, when you don't have a place to stay, it's kind of complicated to keep fish tanks. So this is going to get deep real quick, so I think I'm just going to wrap up this question. So yeah, I just think that a lot of things can happen later on in life, without even going into the fish tank hobby. A lot of things now happen later on in life, because, you know, all this, it does have a cost. I'm lucky enough to have to do, I don't have an official sponsor, but I do sponsored projects, and a lot of my equipment comes through sponsored projects. So I am lucky to have that kind of support. But obviously when you're coming into this hobby, a lot of people can't imagine sometimes how much stuff can cost. So of course you don't have to go for the high-tech expensive stuff, but when you start off with, you know, a little scape, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm gonna need fertilizer. You go buy fertilizer, then you're gonna see that you know, amazing plant at the aquarium store. You're like, oh, I might just get that, and then you fall into the hole that that we're all into in this hobby. So yeah, I hope I answer that question. What about mosquito pillars? How long have you been doing this hobby? So I'm not sure what mosquito pillars are. I have had similar kind of questions about mosquitoes. So I live in France, in an area where we do have quite a lot of mosquitoes, but I haven't had any larvae, any stuff like that in my tank. So I do know that depending on where you are in the world, that can be a real problem. So I don't have the experience to answer questions on mosquitoes. I do know that some aquascapers that are based, I believe, in Florida, in the States, they do have this very fine mesh net. They've made lids with very fine mesh nets to kind of keep the mosquitoes from laying their eggs and larvae and stuff into the water. So maybe that can help you out. And like I said before, I started officially this hobby in 2020, so it's been around 5 years now. How do you manage your tanks while you're away? So this is a good question, because it depends. It really depends on the season. If it's in the middle of winter and I leave for a week, 2 weeks, it's fine. Like my tanks, I can literally leave them as they are. So what I do before I leave, a few days before I leave, I do a good maintenance session. So I'm gonna clean the tanks, I'm gonna change the water, you know, just regular tank maintenance. And I can actually leave the tanks for about a week to 2 weeks. If I leave anywhere more than 10 to 15 days, I do ask somebody to come and to feed the fish or the shrimp. And if it's in like warmer weather, if it's in summer, I do have somebody that comes and tops off the tanks, because evaporation can be a big issue. I found that now when I leave, I really dim the lights down. So I cut my lighting in half. And that really helps to prevent evaporation. But if it's really hot, there's only so much turning off the light is gonna be able to do. So yeah, I do have somebody that comes around and tops off my tanks. So that's what I do when I'm gone. Also, I do want to add that I don't have any automatic feeders, nothing like that. The tanks are actually, all my tanks are very heavily planted tanks. So there is a lot of stuff to eat in my tanks, whether it's a biofilm, whether it's, dead plant matter, microorganics, whatever it's going to be. The shrimp in general do have quite a lot of stuff to eat. While I'm away, I don't feed the tanks. There is somebody that comes to feed Dimitri. Dimitri is my better fish when I'm away, because obviously he's not going to eat dead leaves, right? So somebody does come to feed Dimitri. So yeah, if you do have heavily planted tanks, you can get away with not feeding your shrimp for a week or two, depending on how planted your tank is. But still, you do need to leave them a little bit of food, or have somebody to come around and feed your tanks. Do you ever, or will you in the future, pivot to larger size tanks, or are you a forever nano? So I do like nano tanks. They are extremely convenient. You can also fit a lot of them in a small space, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I am slowly gonna pivot towards bigger tanks this year. So by the end of this year, I am gonna be doing a larger scape, which I hope will be a 90-liter tank. I do have to sort out a stand for that tank, because I actually don't have one. So maybe I will make one just like I did here, or maybe I will have to find a stand that fits this particular tank. The biggest tank I've owned was a 60-liter, so it's still in the nano range. Anything above 60 liters is not a nano tank anymore. So yeah, I've always kept smaller kind of tanks. I've also moved around a lot, so obviously when you have a big tank moving around, it really does get kind of complicated. What's also great with bigger tanks is I'm going to be able to keep different kind of species of fish. Obviously some species do need a lot more space, so like I said earlier, I would love to keep phantom tetras, so I am going to be doing a bigger tank. Who or what inspired you to start aquascaping? So like I said, this massive pond I used to have heavily contributed to that. And one day I stumbled upon a YouTube channel, which now does not post anymore, unfortunately. I'm still hoping one day he will pick it back up. It's actually Foo the Flowerhorn. And I absolutely loved the mini series he made on this Woolstead planted aquarium. It was absolutely amazing, and I think that also heavily contributed to what I'm doing today. Because if you guys don't know, do go and check out his channel, because it's absolutely amazing. I also learnt so much by watching all his videos. So big fan. What was the hardest part about your first cape, and how did you overcome it? So I did, before I set up my first aquarium, I did so much research, and I think this kind of answers the third part of the question. If you are a newbie, do as much research as you can. So there's only so much you're going to be able to learn through theory, right? But learn how to cycle an aquarium, learn all about that, because that is extremely important, especially if you're going to be keeping any kind of sensitive fish or any shrimp. Your tank needs to be cycled. So learn about the cycle, learn how to cycle your tank. So I did quite a lot of research, and my first tank, it turned out great. I didn't have any algae, any problems whatsoever with it. So I think I was, I was well prepared. So that really did help. But for newbies, yeah, it's just you need to learn the basics on keeping fish. You also, I strongly recommend, if you can get a copy of it, is the ecosystem of planted aquariums. It's from Diana Woolstead. So I don't know if I said that right, but I'll put it up on the screen. So if you can get yourself a copy of this, it's amazing. You will learn a lot through it. But yeah, it's just take your time, don't rush. Secondly, get yourself, like I said earlier, get yourself a good quality aqua soil. It doesn't matter which brand it is, get yourself a good one that's not going to deplete. Get yourself also a good light, that you can adjust. If it's dimmable, it's always better. And yeah, that's already going to set you up for a good success. The rest is really up to you. What's the average cost of getting one of your tanks up and running? Does it take a lot of time to maintain them? And how often do you clean the water and change it? So the average cost, like I said, all this has been a sponsored project, so I haven't paid anything from my pocket. A setup like this, the tank is 35, the filter is 20 something, and the light is 50. So just tech wise, we're looking anything between 130 to 150 euros. And of course, that's not including aqua soil, it's not including plants, any extras. So on all my tanks, I have what's it called, a Bluetooth variator. What it is, it plugs into your light, and that way you can actually link it up to an app, so then I can actually control the light intensity, the timer. So all these lights have been connected. So the plug itself, I think, is 35 euros. So again, it really depends how you're going to set up your tank, if you are going to heavily plant it as well, because that can be extra costly as well. So yeah, I think for a whole setup like this, you're looking at something like 200 euros, which, you know, can be a budget for such a small tank. But yeah, I do think it's round about a decent price, especially for this opti white glass. A tank like this anywhere else you would not get it for 35 euros. You would be, I think ADA have literally almost the same one, and I think it's something like 90 or 100 euros, so that's like 3 times the price of this one. Obviously it's a brand. How often do I change the water, and does it take a lot of time to maintain them? So yeah, obviously when you have as many tanks as I do, it does take a lot of time. I water change these tanks. I do 10 to 20% water changes on them every 2 weeks. So I don't really do that much water changing, but I do glass cleaning, trimming, a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, it can take quite some time, but obviously if you just have one tank, then you're good. So that was actually the last question. So I want to say a big thank you to everybody that sent in their questions on Instagram and on YouTube, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So again, I will see you guys next week for a new video.